organization for 20 years has been doing something that no one else does, and that is providing media, providing coverage to Loyalist Township. I mean, born on the island, born in the barn has been the catchphrase for a long time, but you guys are providing a service and an entertainment source for everyone across Loyalist, and it is so, so greatly appreciated. And I'm very aware of the idea that you didn't come here to listen to me. You came here to listen to the stories and talk to the people that have been heavily involved in the radio station for so long, and they've done such an amazing job. So I will simply present a little certificate. Congratulations on behalf of the Government of Ontario. I am very pleased to extend my sincerest congratulations to Amherst Island Radio as you celebrate your 20th birthday. We are thrilled to recognize and celebrate this milestone. Thank you for the important service you provide to the community. Wishing you continued success and many more happy years to come. Thank you.
It's like a time warp for me, this room right now, because I started with the radio station in 2011. So I was not here for the beginning, but I had to learn from the beginning how it all started. And one of the greatest pictures that I've often referred to over the years is the one on this slide right now. Now, if you're a member of the Friends of Amherst Island Radio, we pushed this out. Mainly because we remembered we had this picture because Terry Culbert put it on his Facebook. But what it is an actual photo of what happened on April 1st, 2006. This is Tom Richmond. He was our then station manager in the barn. And for those that have been to the barn lately, it doesn't look like that anymore, except what? The cows. The cows are exactly there. They have never moved for 20 years. It's absolutely fascinating. Now, I have corresponded with Tom a lot in the last couple of years as I'm trying to piece together the feelings that he had this day, to get a sense. Now, he can't make it here today because he's actually out of the country. Otherwise, I really, really wanted him to be here. But he said he was so nervous this day, he actually didn't think any of this would really work. Okay? So for those of us in the room that were there that day, maybe you share that sentiment. And I know for sure that many people that were there that day probably didn't think this would make it 20 years, though. So 20 years is definitely an accomplishment when you think about the community that drove this radio station forward. Now, this slide here is my favorite paint slide from Home Depot. Yeah? I just really like blue. Just really like blue. And I'm using it to illustrate a point that we launched. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history because, people that have joined this organization at different points in the organization and, not all completely familiar with how things work. So here you go, April 2006. We launched on 93.7 with a 5-watt signal. And of course, before that, it took a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, some construction, et cetera, et cetera. It was the wild, wild west, so to speak, of trying to do something really, really cool. And then the first really major milestone that occurred was about a year and a half later, okay, when there was a boosting of the signal, okay? We actually switched from 93.7 to 92.1, and then the signal boosted to 250 watts. Okay, this wasn't so much by design. It was because we were pushed out by some corporate giants at the time. But anyway, we just went with the flow, and this is what we did. This was a major milestone, 92.1 FM. And then I will call it the quiet period, okay, where we just decided how to organize ourselves, how to do cool things, and how to move this thing forward until our next major milestone, which occurred in 2021. This is when we launched the tower on Amherst Island. And that tower launch isn't just an infrastructure project. What we also did is we switched frequencies to 101.3 FM. Does anybody know why we switched frequencies? The overlap of the signal, we didn't want to swamp KCVI at the Cave. They have the only radio station embedded inside a high school in the entire country. And if we would have stayed at this, we would have damaged them. So we decided to move, and it was a great, great, noble thing for us to do because they're still going over there at the high school. Growing the next generation of broadcasters, right? Next generation. At the same time, we boosted to 4,800 watts, which was really a game changer because, as Rick mentioned, this is now when the entirety of Loyalist Township could enjoy our signal. And the pleasant side effect that occurred is, woo, all of Kingston can now enjoy the signal, and all of Napanee, and all the bottom parts of Stone Mills, et cetera, et cetera. There was even South Shore of Amherst Island. Even some parts of Amherst Island couldn't get it before, and boom, there they go. And our milestones weren't done yet. Inside our 20-year history, the next milestone that I'm documenting is the one where we launched the Media Hub in Bath. Now, this one took place in January 2025 is what I like to do. There was some testing that we did there in the fall beforehand. But I would say that we're pretty much rolling 24/7 from the mainland studios over there. And today, we still operate all these facilities. We operate 3 facilities. The first one is the tower on the island. The second one is, of course, the barn on the island. That barn studio is still exactly there. The cows are babysitting that place, okay? The cows are babysitting it. And now the Media Hub. All these facilities completely integrated together so that volunteer broadcasters can make a choice which microphone to turn on which day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now I've given you all a little briefing about the history of the milestones, and I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you clapping. Now I need you guys to do a little work, okay? So I'm going to ask everyone here to please stand up, if you can. Okay, and now I'm going to ask everyone who's not a volunteer or hasn't in the past been a volunteer, you know, if you're just a friend of the radio station, I say just, okay? It's very important to be a friend of the radio station, but if you're not a volunteer or haven't been a volunteer in the past, I'd like you to please take a seat. Everyone else, please stay standing. Okay. Now I want everyone to look around the room. Look behind you. Look in front of you. And I'm going to ask a major favor of the people that are sitting down. Can the people that are sitting down please clap for the people that are standing up? Yeah. Those humans right there, all those humans did this. Okay, now I'm going to relieve a couple of folks from their ability to stand up. Okay? If you're a volunteer that's standing right now and you join the group in January 2025 or later, please take a seat. Okay, now look around the room. Who's standing? Look around the room. And now will the people that are seated please clap for the people that are standing? All right, you know where I'm going with this, right? Home Depot, and I love blue. If you were a volunteer at the radio station in 2021, please stay standing, and I'd ask the others to please take a seat. Now, Dale can't sit down. What the heck? Stand up. Okay, look around. Look around. Will those that are seated please clap? Now, there's a lot of years on the Home Depot swatch between that blue and this blue. 2007. Who was a volunteer in 2007 remains standing? Wow, a lot of people are sitting down. A lot of people. Okay, look around, look around, look around who's standing. Please clap. Some folks often think that I was here for the beginning of this radio station. It's not true. I'd be seated right now. I would be seated right now. So it's very, very important that you have a strong look at the people that are standing up. They are the pioneers. Okay, are we going to talk about 2026? Who was a volunteer in 2006 when the radio station went live? Day one, please stay standing. Everyone else, please sit. Okay, look at the room. Look around. Look at the room. Yes. None of us would be here today. None. None of us would be in this room today if it wasn't for the people that are standing up right now. None of us. Some folks might know Mike Peters. He does Wednesday evening, great show called The Nightcap. Can't be with us right now because he actually lives on the East Coast. He ended up one of these crazies that left us here, but continued to do a show remotely. Mike is really, really interested in history. And when I told him that we were going to have a party about a year ago, he said, Eric, will you just leave it to me? I will go scrub the internet and find everything I could find on the internet about the olden days. And I said, sure, I got no time for any of that. Go for it, Mike. And then Mike wrote me back and said, Eric, about 3 months later, wrote me back and said, I got a problem. There's almost nothing on the internet about the early days of this radio station. And he said the very first schedule I could find was only like on year 6 of the radio station. And I said, okay, well, show it to me. And so he showed it to me, and I just want to show you, I give you an appreciation what it looked like in year 6 of this radio station. So I made this little slide where you can see I'm going to talk about shows, broadcasters, the weekly number of hours, and capacity. Now, capacity I'm defining by CRTC standards. The broadcasting week has 126 hours between 6 a.m. and midnight, and I'm going to tell you how full that was. There was 11 shows, 12 broadcasters, 24 fresh hours a week. That's it, 24. And that filled up the schedule 19%. And the way that we didn't bore the listeners is we repeated all the shows. So if you had a show in the morning, we recorded it and you played it again in the afternoon. And we were like, wow, Dale's on all the time. It was great. It's super great. And that's how we did it. Humble beginnings. That is 6 years in. I want to show you the numbers today. Okay, today, or actually maybe yesterday. But first, guess. How many shows? 41, 55, 30. 51 shows. 51. How many broadcasters that actually talk into microphones? 60. 100. 70. Dylan, got an answer? Go. 6, 7. Maybe that's a good one. The answer is, now I'm not talking about all the volunteers, because there's a bunch of people that don't talk on microphones that are still doing things around here, but the microphone talkers, 59 microphone talkers. 59. Out of the 126, okay, there's a maximum of 126 broadcasting hours between 6 a.m. and midnight, 7 days a week. How many are full? What do you say? How many hours? 84. I heard 84. 100? 72. 114. 114, right? 90% full. So, of course, we want more volunteers to join us, but the available time slots are really crappy, okay? They're very crappy. This is amazing growth, right? It's amazing growth. I'm sure I wasn't there, but I'm sure if you talk to people in 2010, 2009, 2008, they couldn't have predicted these numbers. They couldn't have. I'm going to show you 3 pictures, and I want you to try to figure out what they are. First picture, red circle. Got a handle on that one, eh? Second one. Is that turquoise? I'm colorblind. Is that turquoise? Turquoise circle. Oh, the shape has changed. It's an oval now. Blue, is that blue? Blue oval. What do we think that means? I'm going to go to Dylan. Sir, you got an answer? Toys. Dylan says toys. It's a good answer. Does someone have other answers? It is the broadcasting radius. I'll help you understand it a little differently by putting this down. It's a map. Amherst Island sort of in the middle there. It's that big giant island, okay, right in the bottom. And here it is in 2006. You see the red circle? That is the broadcasting radius. And then you'll recall that because of the big bad corporate wolves, we had to switch to 92.1. And at that time, the CRTC took a little pity on us and let us crank up the signal a little bit. So we went to the massive 250 watts. Now you could hear us in Bath. It was awesome. Okay? It was awesome. And then again, there was the quiet period, right? And fast forward all the way to 2021, when the tower changed the capabilities. It absolutely was a massive, massive game changer. The CRTC permitted us to boost to 4,800 watts. And it's a wow. Like, it's a wow. It is a big, big growth phase for the signal. And of course, that means that people driving around their cars all throughout this region can now catch 101.3 FM wherever they go. And of course, we've always been on the internet, so people can catch us on the internet wherever they go. So, yeah, please. It's a lot of work to do these step changes. So everyone that was involved in these step changes deserves a lot of credit. Here's the real one that unlocked everything, right? This is a picture of the tower. It's 120 feet. There's a 30-foot antenna on it that we actually got from Italy, believe it or not. It has 4 bays. That's why you see these like 4 little kind of like arrows at the very top, and they're all pointing northward. And it's kind of confusing when you think about it, but why does it make an oval, when we're kind of pointing northward? And it's because of physics. And the way physics works is that radio waves slow down over a surface area. And as you climb up to Tamworth and Aaronsville, a lot of those radio waves lose a lot of energy. And we certainly couldn't have done this without the people that started this radio station and drove us all the way home. The incorporation document for Amherst Island Radio. I just want to read you some of these names. Whose name is actually on this thing from 2005? Okay, we'll see if anybody's in the room. Alex Scott. Alex is not in the room, I don't believe. Gary McDonald. I don't believe Gary is in the room. Ida Gavlis. She's not in the room. Tom Richmond, who we know is not in the room. Tom Sylvester, not in the room. Adam Miller, in the room. Famous. Lynn Fleming, not in the room, right? Not in the room. These are your amazing pioneers that were there. The date on this, 22 February 2005, like more than a year before the radio station went live. These folks had this paper in their hands. So you had to think about planning and construction. It really took a long time. And I want to let you know today that one of the fun things about running a volunteer organization is that you never have to really discuss salaries too often. Instead, you just thank people all the time. Okay, you just do that. And it becomes part of the DNA. And today we're going to present Karen and Wayne this trophy, and I want to read you what it says. It says, Island Radio 101.3 FM, Lifetime Achievement Award. Karen and Wayne Fleming.
Oh, I appreciate the unnecessary recognition of this very much, but it's when the idea came to us, like I say, we didn't think twice about doing it. It just seemed like a logical place to do it, and just had a couple of quick memories about when the radio station started. I think it was Adam and Tom and myself. Remember, we had the big roll of wire out by the side of the silo there, and we were down there, and Tom was pulling this massive wire up to the top of the silo to hook it into the I guess be the transmitter at the top of the silo, I guess. And another memory was, I think we probably did the first on location broadcast when the windmill kind of idea came around. Tom and Adam and I took it upon ourselves to go down to the Tug Hill Plateau and interview some people down there. I don't know if it ended up being if it got broadcast on the air or not, but we did that for a day and got some opinions down there, and it went from there. So based on that, we've always been a big supporter of the radio station, and we appreciate for the recognition. Right, thank you very much.
Whether it's recently been being nominated by the Lennox and Addington Chamber of Commerce for a Milestone Award, and I think Sue, our Vice President Sue and President Colin are going to be at that presentation next week, and they're going to be crossing their fingers that maybe they'll pick us. You know, the impact goes a long way. It's great to have the recognition come back from the community in our direction as well. Now, I want to have a few stories from some of the folks that were there in the early times, so I'm going to ask Mr. Terry Culbert to join us here.
I just want to say the picture you saw of and your mind goes, Tom Richmond at 9:02 that particular morning. I took that picture because I was in the little milkhouse room with him. And but what a treat. I came from a background of television news, and Barb and I moved to the island. Love it still. Every once in a while on Facebook, I post pictures of our life here and other people's lives here. But I'm going to tell you two little things. Brian Little, my dear friend Brian Little, who was unfortunately died about a year ago, he and I were co-hosts on the Friday morning show. And a thrill, not to do with the radio. I had a wonderful neighbor called Dorothy McGinn. And there was another wonderful neighbor, but in the village of Stella, called Bonnie Cahy. They both made our breakfast many times. And it started with Dorothy. She was right next door down on O'Drains Bay. And she'd make it, and she'd be waiting when I went by in the morning. Hot bacon and eggs and toast under tinfoil. I mean, boy, that was fantastic. And then Bonnie Cahy started doing the same thing for Brian and I. This is the only other little tidbit I'm going to give you. Where could you find people that are so great as, to me, the superintendent of the roads department on the island, Gary Filson? One morning, it was snowing like heck, and he phoned me and he said, "Terry, you're not going to get home." I'm about 12 kilometers away. And he said, "When you finish your show, drive to such and such a place on the main road." And he said, "There'll be a plow there. Just follow it home." I mean, isn't that beautiful? Whoa. Yeah. And I don't think Gary's here. No, he's not here. Okay. Pass it on. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to say thank you. And it's great to see so many people that we lived on the island for 10 years. We're now over in Prince Edward County. I never stopped doing radio until a year and a half ago. So I did 10 years of a Friday morning show on 99.3. And boy, I'll tell you, Island Radio, it was my first behind the microphone as far as a DJ went, and I loved it. And I still love it. Okay. Thank you for...
I wasn't really going to come today, but I got conned in.
Good.
Thanks. I came to the island, actually Terry and I moved to the island at the same time in 2004. And there was a whisper of another person who was in the same organization as myself as a worker, and that was Tom Richmond. He was an electrician, and I was in the electronic side of it. So as time went on, he and I talked more and more about it, but he never really involved me in the radio station except for helping out, as you can see there. So I kind of did all the grunt work. About a year after the radio station got going, he came to me and he says, I heard that you have about 2,000 LPs, jazz LPs, in your basement. And I said, yeah, I collect them. He says, how would you like to do a show? I said, what? I says, I'm a hands-on working person. I don't talk much. I'm an introvert. But anyway, he conned me into it later on. So I practiced on it, and I didn't really know what to do because working in a volunteer radio station is not something you learn and then go do the work. You're there, OJT, at the time. You make it or you fail at the time. So I got everything planned up about what I was supposed to do, talked to a number of people. They gave me some hints. And my wife, Judy, was kind enough to do all the writing for the talking that I was going to do. And at the last minute, somehow, I said, would you come down with me and help me and organize the papers? And reluctantly, she said so and did. I got in front of the mic. The buttons were turned. I had supposed to be what I was going to do, and I turned it on. And Tom's there. I couldn't speak. I absolutely froze. The music came on. I settled down a bit, and I said, Judy, you talk, and I'll play. And that's how it went. She would talk about the artists, and I would play the music. Well, it took about, maybe 4 or 5 sessions, because I had the program was between 11:30 and 1 o'clock on Thursdays. So I had another week to practice and finally got it going. But the family that we got involved in with the radio station, it's been amazing. And we've been with it and next to it. And I still haven't had a chance to see the new radio station because I know what you're going to do, aren't you? Yeah, you're going to call me on again. But anyway, thank you very much. This has been great. It's been wonderful.
Okay, Ellis Wolfries was very, very easy. Give it up for Ellis. Up until he passed away, he had the longest running radio show on the station. It's amazing, and I want to thank Jay and June for taking the mantle. The Wolf's Den lives on because of them. Thank you. There was a bit of a, conversation about maybe Dale should go first on this plaque. And Dale was very kind, and he said, no, let's do Ellis. So that's how we did it, but we made Dale a deal that he would go next. So we accepted that. We waited 1 year, and then we got the medal out again, and we wrote his name. So Dale Gowan. And then it just kept going down the list. It was all the people that were making the biggest impacts that had been there more than a decade. Brian Little, 2018. Keith Miller, 2019. Susan Filson, 2020. Janet Scott, 2021. Kathy Christmas, 2021. Me. I cried a little when the medal got my name on it. David Pickering, 2023. Judy Bierma, 2024. Leah Murray, 2025. A lot of us recognize a lot of those last names, right? A lot of those people, they come from families that have supported this radio station for a long, long time. It's kind of fascinating. There's a bunch of blank plaques on there too, so we will see who's next. I just want, I know a lot of people know this, but Dale and Ellie are the landowners at the barn. And again, none of us would be in this room if they had made a massive leadership decision on behalf of their family to permit the radio station to operate there. And for that, we are presenting them today a Lifetime Achievement Award.
When Tom Richmond started talking about Amherst Island should have a radio station, I thought, that's got to be the stupidest idea. A little island, how could that possibly work? Well, anyway, so that was one thing. And then next thing I knew, he was knocking on my door and said, would you have any place in your barn that we could put a studio? He liked our silo because it had nice high opportunity for an antenna. So I said, well, you wouldn't want the barn itself, but there's an old milk house there and it's just got some junk in it. If you want to use that, go ahead. You're welcome to it. I figured that's not going to last. Anyway, when he's still there, even though we've told them for years that, you should think about moving. But anyway, we don't know when they're going to move, but so far we're fine with that. Anyway, Ellie was part of that decision. And then, of course, Tom came along and said, would you consider doing a show sometime? Well, that was never on my radar either. Anyway, with Ellie's help and a lot of other people contributing, we decided, well, what the heck. So that's how the Utter Morning Show got started. The name came from the fact that there was a Friday morning show and another morning show and a breakfast in the barn and whatever. And that was just an Utter Morning Show. Anyway, Ellie became my producer, and probably Keith was one of the early guests I had. And then Janet Scott, I think Ellie suggested, you should have Janet Scott in, talk about birding because so many birders come to the island. Well, that's a good idea. And so I think she's still doing that, isn't she? Well, right? So anyway, and then, one thing after another, I think she suggested I should get Susan Filson in. Susan was a really enthusiastic music person and she loved holidays. So she had music lineups for Christmas and for Valentine's and Easter and all those. So she started to become a regular. And then as time went on, I thought we should have a co-host. And Ellie said, well, why don't you get Susan? So that evolved on. And anyway, we had a great run. I think my first show was in 2007. I made some notes, actually. It was March 9th in 2007. And we had Janet Scott on shortly after that. And then Susan came. She started co-hosting in 2011 and then co-hosted right through for quite a few years. My 500th show was on October the 10th, 2016. And I think the last one was September in 2018. So probably around 600 shows, although I wasn't there all the time. So that was the advantage of having Susan. She picked up, and I think she had Keith in a lot to co-host with her as well. So hard to get him out of the radio station at times. Anyway, it's been a great run. Congratulations, Eric. You've done a phenomenal job. So thank you. You want to say anything? Ellie's speechless.
Keith was there yesterday. Okay, he was on the air yesterday. Okay, and he's got many claim to fames, but one of them is the only certified helicopter pilot that we have. He's been doing the traffic for 20 years from that wood-fired helicopter. Okay, like, what will we do? Like, we won't know the traffic on Amherst Island if he doesn't keep up his certification. It's very powerful. And because of the combined work of these two individuals, I'm very proud to present them with a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Hello, everybody. I was even here before the radio started because I built the milk house that we're in probably 20 years before that. Anyway, I've been on and off everybody's show. I've been with Larry Jensen. I started out with Peter Truman. If you remember Peter, he had a show. He invited me to come in and talk with him, and it's a lot easier to talk on the radio than it is here because you can't see anybody. Or I find it easier anyway. So anyway, I've been on and off all these years, different shows. I had a show with Steve Kennedy, Up Steve's Sleeves. Steve isn't here either. And I had a show with Janet Scott, and I had a show with Susan, and now I'm with Lyndon Lorne, and I play music on Monday with Anthony and Judy, and I just keep busy because I can. So Eric said a funny story. I don't know if Kathy Christmas is here or not. Too bad, but I remember in early days I was in the Island Radio had 2 studios, very small, but I was in with Peter Truman, and Kathy was in the other studio finishing her show, and we were waiting for her to go home, and we'd start, and all of a sudden this blood-curdling scream came from the other studio, and she came running out, and a mouse had run across the keyboard of the computer. And I remember saying to her, Kathy, I've never heard of anybody being eaten by a mouse. And was she ever mad at me? Anyway, I hope I can keep going there.
So I was the host of the Breakfast from the Barn, and yes, Tom got, what? You can't do that. We did for about a year and a half, I believe. It was Monday to Friday from 6 until 9, and I interviewed people at home at night. And it was called Breakfast from the Barn because I was still in the barn milking cows when the show aired. So many nights were done interviews from 8 until 10 or 11. Dave Pickering did a few. My favorite co-host was Leah Murray. She would often pinch hit. I could phone her at 7 o'clock and go, you feel like supper tonight and maybe doing a show? She would come over, we'd cook supper, and then she'd do shows. So I would send them from my computer at home to the radio station. And then Tom and I listened carefully the next morning with bated breath to see if I'd actually done it right. So the radio was on in the barn, and I'd be sitting there, and I'd be like, no, that's yesterday's show. And you'd run for you'd phone Tom, hey, Tom, switch it. And he'd change everything, and a new show would run. So it was kind of funny. Your planning stage started in 2004. I listened to Tom talk about what he had purchased on eBay the night before for many months before we actually went to the milk house, carrying 2x8s and 2x6s and plywood to build the floor. So I was there the day we put the joists down for the floor in that milk house, which was interesting. Other than that, a lot of our stories aren't acceptable for air or hear. Thank you again, everyone, and thanks for coming today.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thank you very much for this. I didn't get into radio so that I could see my audience, so it's very uncomfortable. When I was reflecting on the scope of the time that I've been involved with Island Radio, I was trying to come up with one particularly pithy anecdote so I could get off the stage really quickly. But the thing that really struck me was all of the excitement of all of the extraordinary firsts we've had since the very beginning, from initially getting on the air to boosting the signal, upping our tech, just, you know, the first live interview, the first live band, so much excitement the whole way through. And through all that, what an extraordinary community of broadcasters and volunteers have made all of this happen for so many years. And I can say, yeah, we never imagined at the beginning that this is where we would be 20 years later. And I want to thank everybody who's been with us for every step of the way to make this happen. And it's still fun. So thank you.
Well, the word is it's not going to last. So yeah, we'll put our efforts for now. Thank you, everybody, for recognizing CGI. Thank you, Eric. Eric was the president that succeeded me, and he took it on and he made it what it is. I'd like to acknowledge his work as a volunteer, as a broadcaster, as an organizer, as a fundraiser. Like, long live to CGI.
I am also, other people mentioned that, they got rooked in or conned into doing things. Well, Eric is a very good recruiter. We knew each other through work. I co-hosted on his show a couple of times, and then he's like, you have to do a show. And eventually, I think it was like 13 years ago this week, maybe it's like my anniversary. And I started doing a show on the island, thinking I was going to do, just stories, maybe interview people locally, tell their stories, make my own cool playlists, which I did that. But then I reached out to this one guy, the first person I was going to ask, because he had written a book. And he's like, well, I would rather come with my band. And I'm like, okay, send me your music. I'm like, you're not coming unless I like your music. So he sent me his music. I'm like, oh, this is actually really good. So they came out, and that was kind of kicked things off. And I'm like, hey, this is fun. I like having bands out. So I would, get a few bands. In the picture there is Ryan Goligly from Goldwing. He great local musician, very talented. And I would have these bands, and I would invite people to come out, and thinking, oh God, they got to take the ferry. It's a whole ordeal. They're all their gear and everything. They were so happy. They were so thrilled. It was like, eventually they started calling me, can I come out to this radio station? So it kind of like it seemed like it like broadened the horizon a little bit. And some of the bands that I have even had on like just a couple weeks ago, they came out for Ellis's show, and now they were like, I have a heavy metal band, and they were doing like a folk thing before. So this whole music, I met so many people in the Kingston music scene through this. I have another new show that's called Sonic Abduction on Monday nights, and I do it with the folks from Roswell Rehearsals, Trevor and Anita, who are here, because we have bands that come out, they mic everybody, they do the sound and get everything ready for broadcast, because it's a technical business. We used to literally have a band around the microphone hanging in the middle of the room. It was, and this deal here, this was the early setup where you would clunk the and you would hear it clunk to go on the air to turn the mic on. So we've come a long way, and I love the day that I get to go out, the annual visit out to the island, and it's so nostalgic and it's so heartwarming. I think I've gone through a number of shows. I took a break, and now I'm back for about a year doing my new show. And thanks for conning me into it, Eric. Thank you.
This is just a wonderful day because when my wife and I moved to Tamworth in 2020, I had to leave my radio show behind in Kitchener, and I needed a new one. And I talked to some of Terry's friends down in County FM, and then I ran into Eric. And then he didn't have to con me. No. But what he did was he allowed me to go on the air on Friday afternoons and feature music about Ontario musicians, only Ontario musicians. And he thought it was a great idea. He loved the name better, Wildlife Ontario. He thought that was a great name, so we'll go with it. So I did that, and I had a really good time over in the barn. And for the first, 4 years, I was operating out of the barn, and always make sure I had those ferry tickets sitting in the ashtray going over, because $10 was $10, right? No, but I had a really wonderful time. And then the opportunity at Charity Radio Bingo came. And talk about a great way to meet your neighbors. You go and knock on the door and say, "Hi, you won a Charity Radio Bingo. I've got a check for you." And so I actually got to meet so many people in Tamworth and Erinsville area through Charity Radio Bingo. It's just incredible. I keep getting blamed when they lose. That's okay, though. That's okay. I'm used to that. But the one thing I have to say about all of this is that back in 2021, when I started in February, I joined a family. I joined a great family. And I tell you, the volunteers that run CJAI are the greatest family in the world. They all put their effort together. They all work hard together. We are always happy. And we always love great music, and we support local. And that's what we're here for. So thank you, Eric. Thank you for allowing me into your family and being part of it. And I'm having a wonderful time, and I can't wait to keep on doing it.
Yeah, so trying to beat that and follow Gary Patnode with a voice like this is not easy. So as hard as it was jumping into Eric's chair, which I'm just kind of keeping it warm. But for those of you that haven't met me, I started doing Sunday nights back on 2019, February 24th to be exact. And how I got involved, I'll share this story. I'll keep it a little bit brief, but a year before I moved to Kingston, my brother Steve, as Doc Love had referenced, saying, he calls me, he's like, "Hey, I heard you're moving back home after 24 years in Toronto." I said, "Yep." He goes, "You should do a show on Amherst Island radio." And I'm like, "What's that?" It started after I moved. I moved to Toronto in 91 for school. So I'm like, I don't know anything about radio, but didn't think anything of it. Fast forward a year and a half, I'm living just on Bath Road, coincidentally across from Eric. Didn't know it at the time. I get a call out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, it's Eric Tremblay from Amherst Island Radio." And I'm like, "How did you get this number?" It's like, "Your brother tells me you want to do a show on the radio." And then I kind of vaguely recall the conversation that I had. And he's like, "Where do you live?" I'm like, "Well, I live on Bath Road." He goes, "Where?" And he's like, right in this little bay just before Nicholson's Point. And he's like, "Can you see my lights?" He's flicking his light. We literally live across the bay from each other. Dana remembers we're like two idiots in a treehouse with flashlights flicking our lights at each other. So I was like, "Oh, this guy seems kind of cool, kind of crazy. I don't know what this radio thing is." But he's like, "Why don't you come over and join me on my Friday night show?" And he was on the island at 7 o'clock. So he's like, "We could carpool together." And I'm like, "Well, how long's your show?" He's like, 3 hours. And I'm like, "I'll drive myself." And the reason I did that is because I'm going to talk to Eric. He's going to say, so what do you got in mind for a show? And he'll realize I have absolutely nothing to offer to Amherst Island Radio. And I didn't want to sit there for 2 more hours. And so we get there, and Eric's getting ready to do his thing. For those of you that have ever done a show at the barn, you know, we literally have about 7.5 minutes, depending on the crossing, to get ready. So I'm sitting down just beside him, waiting, getting ready to go. I figured he'll do his show, his intro, cue up some music. We'll go talk in the back, and he'll say, "Thanks for coming over. See you later." So he gives me a set of headphones, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess I get to hear the intro. Pretty cool." And next thing you know, he does his intro, and he's like, "So my guest here tonight, Colin Kennedy. Hey," and I'm like, turns on my mic, and I didn't stop talking since. Not only did I stay the full 3 hours, it's like, how do I get involved in this? I need in on this. So a few weeks later, I started doing the Sunday night show. It was supposed to be bi-weekly, and any chance I could go week to week, and I just kept going. And so I'd still do Sunday 7 to 9, and I do the Real Talk 6 to 7, and I absolutely love it. And then that wasn't enough. I want to be involved. I have some ideas, and there was an opening on the board of directors. So I joined the board of directors in 2021, October, and I did that for a couple years, and then lo and behold, I somehow slid into this chair. So I'm certainly very honored and humbled, and I always say I'm more like the chairman of the board of directors as opposed to the president of Amherst Island Radio, and I'm very lucky to lead the board. We have such a fantastic board. We are full. We are at full capacity. We have 11 board members, including myself. We have our vice president, Sue Dodds, who's here today. David Pickering is our treasurer. Alan McLeod is our secretary. That's our executive committee. We have Leah. We have Anthony Gifford, Judy Bierma, Trish Schroeder, who's here, who came in from Ottawa. Then we have John Nye, Paul Broderick, and Kathy Christmas, who we all know just rejoined the board last month. So, did I miss anybody? No, I think I got them all without looking at my notes. So our job, and I take this very seriously, is way more serious than I do in my radio show. But, you know, I feel very, I guess the right word is, you know, honored, but also I don't want to screw this up. 20 years later, I don't want this to be the, you know, so the board is working really hard to continue to be good stewards and custodians of everybody that has come before us and really help to ensure that the direction of the station continues to progress so that we are going to be sustainable another 20 years, 30, because none of us are going to be here forever. As much as Eric, I think we'll probably be like that Tim Hortons commercial, the hologram, where Ryan Reynolds. But, you know, so in my short time here, like all the things that we talked about as far as from the tower, the frequencies, that's right around the time I started. My very first time where I felt like I arrived at Amherst Island Radio was the first fund drive in 2019. I'd been here for a bit. I cut my vacation short to come back. I took every open mic. As I said, I was hooked on this thing. I just couldn't get enough of it. But that was to boost the tower. That's what our drive was. And I couldn't believe how much our volunteers continue to be so dedicated then and now that allowed us to do that. And we've talked about a lot of those, so I won't repeat that. But I just look at Charity Radio Bingo as Gary. Like, we're a small little radio station that has donated over $200,000 to charities in our community. And we've also paid out that much more to people who win. Like, you think about the math, like we're up getting close to $500,000 in a few short years. And I can tell you, I don't know if anybody remembers those first year, but I remember the very first radio game. I was like, wow. I think we lost a fortune on that first one, and we had this projection like we need this to break even. $500,000 later, here we are. So give a huge shout out to all of the, and there's so many volunteers, Gary and Eric and the Queen of the Bingo, Dana. They're the face and voices of, but there's how many mules, I call them, the bingo mules that run the tickets, run the money. Maybe that's not a good term. I think that's more. It's a good movie, but Clint Eastwood. But it's pretty fantastic, and some of the organizations, we give to the legions every year. All 8 legions in our listening area, $1,000 during Remembrance Day. I've been fortunate enough to donate to 3 of them to physically show up and present the checks. We've donated to so many countless charities, food banks, musicians, Joe's Mill, so many. There's just too many to remember. So I just want to say on behalf of the board of directors and all of the volunteers and everybody that's been affiliated with our station, past, present, and future, I'm so looking forward to seeing our progression and the partnership that we have within Loyalist Township with the events. We are so much involved in Bath Canada Day. I've been fortunate to MC that for the last 4 years. Or 4 coming this year. We're very much involved in the tunes that they're doing, Trunk or Treat, and we now have this synergy between our municipal government, our listening areas, and our charities, and it's a pretty cool place to be. So I want to thank everybody for allowing me to speak, and I am going to keep it my word and keep it short. So thank you for coming, and I know we kind of got a little light on the sandwiches, so we got pizzas that just came in now. So make sure you can stop by and get a slice.
I hope everyone has had their photo taken at the photo booth. We're going to need them again. We're going to need them in 10 more years, so please get your photo taken. On behalf of all the volunteers who you clapped for on numerous occasions today, thanks for joining us today at our 20th anniversary.